In video games, what can commonly occur can be that of emotional responses from the player depending on how involved the player is within the game of play. I argue that emotional responses do form a connection to the player and the digital game. This can be commonly seen in the ecological side from which keeps the player engaged and involved within the game, even though the game is seen as scary and doesn't make us get up and walk out of the room. Offline involvement refers to not playing the game at that specific time but keeps players involved enough to keep them talking about the world of play. Interactive emotional involvement from which lures players in with what the game looks like, and narrative from which immerses players into different stories throughout the world of play. In various games, ecological emotions can be implicated generating the responses of fear. This can cause the player to scream or make us run away.
I gotta walk forever for this one. Ah! No, senoritas everywhere, oh my god.
Yet instead, we stay within the room and keep playing. Therefore, makes the argument that ecological emotion can keep us involved as the player. This paper explains further on how the player knows that they cannot be harmed through the screen, but instead makes the audience jump in surprise. Therefore, what we perceive as scary, such as sharp teeth, that to a teddy bear attacking us, makes what we want to be frightening scary in our mind, from which argues that ecological horror can keep us emotionally involved in the world. This example can be found in the game Little Nightmares, where in this world, the game tends to try and scare the audience in different ways, such as running through a vent, thinking you're safe, only to find that a large creature managed to fit their head in and follow you, making it traumatic. Yet, doesn't make us get up and leave, but only makes us continue playing the game. Offline involvement is a key aspect that can get players more involved in the game. Therefore, can be referred to as perks that make up types of builds in games, or discussing raids that could have happened nights before. It's essentially talking about what interesting aspects happen inside the game without merely doing any actual gaming. Some examples that would describe this would be Guild Wars 2, where the game provides the ability to change builds and customize your setup, where players can talk about what they might try to add to their build, or when raiding with pupils within the game the night before, where players can simply talk about what happened. Therefore, keeps the players emotionally involved without even playing the game at that specific time and keeps them thinking about it.
Now let's talk about the attractive involvement aspect. Attractive involvement in video games can cause developers to lure players into their game because of how the graphics may look. In a survey consumed over 4,000 participants, 7% stated that what brings them into the game, whether the gameplay meets their expectation or not in this factor. But what engages the player is the attractive and graphic of the game. An example that fits this would be that of Atlas. This game emotionally involves hundreds of thousands of players into their games, which lead to an enormous audience from which the game itself did not match what was shown, as therefore the game failed. Regardless of what the gameplay was, what engaged of audience into purchasing these games was the attractiveness on what it showed. Therefore, what a game can look like does cause involvement within video game. Last part, let's discuss about the narrative aspect. The narrative is largely considered as an emotional response that a player has within his or her game. This response can be positive and negative. The strong emotional response stems from the narrative investment structure, which is one of the characteristics of video game narrative. Unlike other media that simply appreciate an already complete narrative as an outsider, for video games, the player itself is an external being but can engage in a narrative through game character that can communicate with objects inside, providing higher level of immersion. For example, the case of Fallout New Vegas. The player is involved in a variety of narrative for the character. Rather than following a single-liner storyline, player can experience the narrative of multiple branching points prepared through the character in different directions through their own choice. This characteristic makes the player feel that he is actually the character and part of the world and create his own in-game narrative. In fact, this was a strongly appeal to the player, and despite the serious number of bugs and poor AI which hindered the actual gameplay, it was well received, including more than 5 million sales, arguing that narrative played a large role in what invested player into becoming emotionally engaged with the world of play. In the conclusion, the emotional involvement within video games show how player ecological involvement can bring fear to the player, from which is designed to make players scream or jump out of fear from scary video games. However, these do not make the player leave the room yet, instead keep the player engaged. Flying involvement leads players to discuss the game outside of the game, therefore keep player emotionally involved inside the game without playing the game. Attractive involvement, from which attract player into what the game looks like through the graphic, creating audience from just this element. The narrative makes the player feel a part of the world leading into different branches throughout the story. Therefore, arguing that emotional involvement through this aspect can gravitate a player into becoming engaged with video game. Thank you for watching today and have a nice day.